Before we begin, if you love stories that uncover forgotten voices and mysteries from the past, please consider supporting The Curious Edge. You'll find a PayPal link in the description, and every contribution helps us bring hidden history back to light. Thank you for being a part of our community. Now, let's step back in time. We're going to the trenches of World War I, where poetry met silence, and one Scottish voice was nearly lost to history forever. His name was Joseph Johnston Lee. Born in Dundee, Scotland in 1876, Lee was a journalist, an illustrator, and a dreamer. He had a deep love for words, but it was the crucible of war that would carve his name into the echoes of forgotten poetry. When the First World War erupted in 1914, Lee didn't seek a commission. He enlisted as a simple soldier, joining the famous Black Watch Regiment, a unit known for both its bravery and its heartbreak. Armed with a rifle in one hand and a notebook in the other, Lee captured what few others dared to describe: the fragile humanity flickering inside the overwhelming horror of war. His verses weren't about glory or grand victories. They were about the cold mud, the gnawing fear, and the unbreakable bonds of friendship. He wrote about men who sang to drown out the screams, who laughed to hide the trembling in their hands. One of his most haunting lines captures this perfectly. "They are not dead, who sleep in dust, their memory wakes in hearts like ours." Unlike other famous war poets like Wilfred Owen or Siegfried Sassoon, Joseph Lee wasn't a part of London's elite literary circles. He wrote directly from the front lines, from the mud, under constant fire, with hands that shook from cold and fear. His poetry was raw, intensely personal, and often painfully real. In 1917, his world changed again. He was captured by German forces and spent the next 2 years in a prisoner of war camp. There, surrounded by despair and uncertainty, he continued to write. He wrote about captivity, about the crushing loneliness, and about the strange, unexpected compassion that sometimes blossomed even between enemies. When the war finally ended, Lee returned home to Scotland, but like so many survivors, he came back a changed man. He published his collections, * Ballads of Battle * and * Workaday Warriors *, but the world, eager to forget the trauma, moved on quickly. The spotlight faded, and his words that could have stood beside the greatest war poems ever written were slowly buried by the sands of time. For decades, his books gathered dust on forgotten library shelves. Few remembered the Scottish poet who had seen both the best and the worst of humanity through a soldier's eyes. But recently, a new generation of historians and readers have begun to rediscover Joseph Lee. They're recognizing the immense power of his honesty, his deep compassion, and his resolute refusal to romanticize the brutality of war. His legacy reminds us that great poetry doesn't always come from a place of fame or privilege. It often comes from a place of profound truth. Lee's story isn't just about one man. It's about every artist whose voice was silenced by history. It's about every soldier who wrote by candlelight, not for recognition, but simply to hold on to their sanity and maybe to leave behind something beautiful in a world that had lost its meaning. So the next time you hear the names of the great war poets like Wilfred Owen or Rupert Brooke, remember Joseph Johnston Lee, the Scottish soldier poet whose words, once whispered in the mud and smoke, still echo today if we just take a moment to listen. If you'd like to help us tell more stories like this one about forgotten minds, unsolved mysteries, and the beauty hidden in history, please consider supporting The Curious Edge via the PayPal link below. Your support is what keeps these vital voices alive. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, please like, subscribe, and join us for the next story.